Or you can engage and debate me and tell me what I'm getting wrong. Being offended doesn't work anymore.
Greetings. So I wanted to make a very quick video on a recent development in the ongoing discussions on the pews over at First African Baptist Church in Savannah, Georgia. And so what I'm going to use as the centerpiece is this Facebook post, which was posted to the Biblical Rumble Room No Holds Barred Facebook forum. And the post shares a screenshot of some text from the official website of First African Baptist Church. And just to give some relevant background to this discussion, the official website of the church had originally declared that there is cursive Hebrew on the pews. And then later on, the website removed the reference to cursive Hebrew and stated that there's Arabic on the pews. And just recently, in the last few days, that's changed yet again, and that's what this post is noting. So you'll notice the caption at the top. It reads as follows, quote, "Looks like the church in Savannah got their own scholars and changed the website to align with their findings about the language on the pews." All right. Now, note that reference to scholars. So it goes on, if we can just jump right to the most relevant point, starting with the bold text. It says, "The pews located in the balcony are original to the church. The pews were made by enslaved Africans and are nailed into the floors." And this is the part that was changed. The language reference has changed over the years. "On the outside of some of the pews are Semitic languages that consist of cursive Hebrew, Ethiopian Amharic Ge'ez, and ancient Aramaic from the 1800s that's no longer spoken or written amongst modern Semitic languages." Okay, so that's the new position of the church's website. And then the gentleman who posted that explicitly tags me. So, a lot of people like to, whenever I discuss the pews, I'm often responding to someone. And unfortunately, I've faced this trend of people asking me why I'm still on the subject, why I'm beating a dead horse. I've gotten that repeatedly over the years. Somebody will challenge me to, respond to something on the subject. And then when I do, they accuse me of beating a dead horse. So I want to note that I'm being invited to discuss this subject. And in fact, if I could scroll down a bit more, you'll notice at the bottom, a gentleman wrote, "Oh, the pews," and then put a little, eye-rolling emoji. And the author of the thread wrote, "This is just, quote, Abu bait, end quote. He and Mike Pereira love this stuff." So he's explicitly stating that part of the point of this post is to bait me into discussing it. So I think it's pretty clear that this was an invitation for me to discuss this subject. So now let me go up to the post, the comment in which I'm tagged, and we'll go through this. And there was a number of comments. Our good friend Tazara wrote, "It must not be true because al-MaseeHee al-Manhattan and faithful to God said it wasn't," with a little laughing emoji. Very funny. I'm guessing Tazara has either seen some compelling evidence that there's language on the pews, or he's just taking this on faith. I don't know. Then we have an interesting comment from the Orthodox Moor, Tyvon Swain-El, and he writes as follows to the author. He says, "It'll be interesting to see if there's a grand pushback on the story now changing from 6 languages being spoken, as Dr. Kelly Richardson just reminded everyone of. As I understand from Tzadik ben Yehuda, who's also known as Anonymous Hebrew, he has it recorded from his tour in August of 2019 that Arabic was one of the 6 languages. It's a shame people feel a need to exclude Arabic now instead of include it among the many Semitic languages of Africa, particularly being that Arabic script was found on Sapelo Island and in Savannah by a Mandingo slave who wrote the Gospel of John in the Gullah dialect with the Arabic script." That's an important point. He goes on to say, "I would love to see the scholarship that keeps causing the church to change their website." And that got a little heart react from me. So here's my response to the author. And this is what I write. "Greetings to all." So I guess it wasn't just to the author, but I said, "Let me first note that I am commenting because I was tagged twice." I should mention that Tazara tagged me as well. "Lest anyone ask why I'm, quote unquote, still on this or, quote unquote, beating a dead horse, etc." So now I go on to quote the author, Yeshaya. So if you recall the salient portion that he wrote in his caption, it says, looks like the church in Savannah got their own scholars, emphasis on scholars, and changed the website to align with their findings about the language on the pews. So then I responded to that quoted text and I say, invoking scholars is invariably going to raise questions about who those scholars might be. It would be unfortunate if they were secret scholars.
And definitely no secret scholars. We all still got a bad taste in our mouth over that whole Richard Katz stuff.
Then I go on to say, that said, as far as I can see, the website does not explicitly mention any scholars. As far as possibilities are concerned, for all we know, this change could be under the influence of Kelly Richardson and Benaiah Israel. And maybe I'll go into more detail later, but suffice to say, the argument, well, let me rephrase that. The assertion being made by the website is very much reminiscent of the claims of Kelly Richardson and to a lesser extent Benaiah Israel. And it's interesting, Dante Fortson in a recent video had stated that Kelly Richardson gave him some advance notice of the change being made to the website, told him before the website was changed that it was going to be changed.
I did get a heads up. Pastor Kelly did give me a call a few days ago. He had let me know in advance this was going to happen.
So the fact that Kelly had advance notice of that strikes me as possibly corroborating my suspicion that this change may have been made under the influence of Kelly Richardson. But we'll see as time goes on. So I continue. Whatever the case, whether these conclusions were reached by scholars or non-scholars, the real question is going to be how they reach such conclusions. Can we see the relevant markings which contain these languages and get a transcription of that Hebrew, Aramaic, or Amharic that appears therein? That said, I'm appending an excerpt from my video from the 9th of October 2019, i.e. more than 2 years ago. And then there's the URL of the video. And it said, as the clip captures, back then, Kelly and I pretty much agreed that if anyone, including whomever updates the church's website, is going to claim Arabic appears on the pews, they should present a case for that position. Unlike Kelly, however, I said that likewise applies to anyone affirming any other language as well. So unless a case is made for these assertions, this recent change in the website seems to still have us at roughly the same place we were at more than 2 years ago. In other words, back in 2019, Kelly, when the website was saying that it's Arabic, Kelly Richardson was saying that if they're going to claim it's Arabic, they need to, they basically have to present their case. And I agreed with Kelly on that we can't just take the church's claim on faith that Arabic appears on the pews. Rather, they're invited to present a case. Anyone who claims any language is on the pews should present a case. But unlike Kelly Richardson, I didn't restrict that just to Arabic. I feel that rule, if we're consistent, should apply to all languages. If you're going to claim any other language that appears on the pews, whether it's Arabic or anything else, you should present a case for it. You should point to the relevant markings and then transcribe out what you think appears there and then attempt to translate it, right? That's what I think. But here, let me play the clip from my video. So here, and you'll take a look and see this point. This is going to run about 3 minutes. Pastor Richardson at least makes an interesting methodological point. A methodological point I agree with. However, with all due respect to him, I feel that he applies this methodological point inconsistently. He's going to rightly argue that if someone's going to claim it's Aramaic or Arabic, they should be able to translate it, to read it, to state what appears there. Now, as you listen to this, ask yourself if he applies the same rule to himself.
So those writings on those pews is a Shemitic language, is not Arabic, because if it was so, then how come they still haven't translated? Was able to read it. It's not Aramaic, because if it was Aramaic, whether it's modern or ancient or whatever, how come they still haven't been able to translate it?
Correct.
But they were in awe when I showed some of the letters from the Ga'az in combination with the Shemitic language. Now, I'm not saying that I can read what's on the pews, but I can identify some of those letters.
Did you catch that? He rightly notes that if someone's going to say that it's Arabic or Aramaic, they should be able to read it, or at least they should be able to present some sort of a case in favor of their position. If they can't read it, if they can't understand it, then how can they claim that it's Arabic or Aramaic? It could be something else. But then he himself admits that he cannot read what's there, what's allegedly there. And then that begs the question then, how did you reach the conclusion that it's Hebrew if you can't read it? The rule that applies to Arabic should also apply to Hebrew and as well to any other language claim. If someone claims that that in those markings is discernible Japanese or Yiddish or Aramaic or Arabic or English or Spanish or Hebrew or Amharic or whatever, that person should be able to present a case for it. If they can't understand what's there, then it really begs the question, how did they reach the conclusion that a specific language is present there? That said, I found... Whatever the case, as this video draws to a close, I'd like to recall the methodological point made by Pastor Richardson, which he repeated later in his discussion.
If they're going to say that it's Arabic, then read it in Arabic. If you're going to say that it's Aramaic, then read it in Aramaic. If you're going to say whatever, read it to me. Read it to me. Because if that's the case, then they'll be able to read it.
Now, I agree with Pastor Richardson. If someone is going to claim that Arabic appears in those markings, they should present their case. Same thing goes for someone who claims that Aramaic appears in those markings. And the same thing goes for any other language. If you claim that Amharic or Yiddish or Spanish or English or anything, Vietnamese, Japanese, any language that you claim appears in those markings, you should present your case. However, while I agree with Pastor Richardson on that point, I hope that he will agree that in all fairness, the very same rule that he applies to others should also be applied to him and those who agree with him on his position. That is to say, if you're going to claim that Hebrew appears in those markings, you should present your case. Or as he put it, read it to me. Now, this is when it gets interesting. The author of the thread responded as follows. He said, whenever you start off with repeating what is already written and everyone can read for themselves, I will not pay any attention to what you have to say or hit read more. You are needlessly redundant, arrogant, and condescending in your responses. You talk to your audience as if they are stupid and you're the only one who's smart. We rib you sometimes and you also do others, but talk to us with respect. You don't listen to your audience nor care for any constructive criticism, but stubbornly press ahead regardless. This is why you seem so baffled as to why more folks don't respond to you or follow you. You are too impressed with yourself and can't understand why others aren't also. Wow. What I would say is, I mean, unfortunately, this is familiar. You know, this is something I've experienced in many of these discussions with the Pews where, you know, again, I don't think highly of myself. I'm not claiming to be a scholar or an expert on any topic I discuss, right? It's absolute amateur hour every step of the way. But vis-a-vis the Pews, what we should be focusing on is the markings. We should be focusing on the methodology that's involved in attempting to interpret those markings, right? That's what's important. Unfortunately, over the years, I've constantly ran into people who don't want to discuss the markings and don't want to discuss methodology, but instead want to declare how offended they are. And that's really unfortunate. One thing I'll note at the end of the thread, after posting that, the same author went on to state the following. If I can find this real quick. He said, for all questions about the Pews, please contact First African Baptist Church of Savannah, Georgia. The link to their website and info is in the original post. Unfortunately, on Dante Fortson's recent video on the subject, he accused us, sort of preemptively accused the skeptics of harassing the church, reaching out to them and harassing them and troubling them and stuff like that.
So now here's what we can expect from the other side, because they are people without morals and people of terrible character. We're going to expect them to call down and start harassing these people because for whatever reason, black people making an ethnicity claim bothers them that much that they feel the need to contact different places whenever the claim is made and something is found that backs that claim. They want to try to get it shut down or changed.
So there's an interesting, I don't know if conundrum's the right word here, but it seems like one person is encouraging us to go out and contact the church and another person is gearing up to accuse any attempt to reach out to the church of being harassment, of constituting harassment. And that's unfortunate. But so this is what I'll say. My position is the same now as it was back in October of 2019. You know, it doesn't matter if the church says it's Hebrew or Arabic or anything else. Whatever position the church's website takes, we would hope that the proponents of that view would explain how they reached that conclusion. point to the markings, make their case, etc. Right? The position has been the same. And honestly, I'm incredibly skeptical that these claims can be backed up. Like, for example, to say that both Hebrew and Aramaic appears on the pews, you would have to have strings of characters that are so complex that they produce terms that are distinct, respective terms that are distinct to each language, right? And then on top of that, for someone to say that there's Amharic in the Ge'ez script written on the pews, and this is a subject I've discussed in previous videos, again, you would, in order to say that it's specifically Amharic, you would need a string of Ge'ez characters so complex as to produce terms which are specifically distinct to Amharic rather than other languages that use the Ge'ez script, right? Just saying, it looks sort of like a character, and then jumping to a language that uses a script which has that character is, that would be akin to finding, let's say, like a cruciform or something like that and saying it looks like the Latin letter T, therefore this must be Spanish or French or Vietnamese or something like that. Like, you can't leap to a conclusion about a language based on some markings vaguely resembling individual characters from a script which is used to convey that language, right? And again, we've discussed this in previous videos. Whatever the case, Dante Fortson said that Kelly Richardson might have a new video on this subject coming out, so I look forward to that. I just wanted to briefly share my thoughts. I just wanted to ask if we could please all stop. I mean, I don't know how to put this in a way that's, I'm trying to come up with a polite way to put this, but I would ask that we, at best, not be so sensitive, and at worst, stop feigning offense at discussions on methodology. Let's just stick to the arguments, let's stick to the pews, and let's not, let's avoid declaring how offended we are. That's all I ask. On that note, I look forward to where this discussion's going, and of course, I look forward to the comments of others. God bless.